Is it you? I thought so. Hello fellow Space Cat, it's me Jules, doing drawing, planning and publishing. Feel like breaking a few art rules? Me too. There is nothing I love more than to be told you must do things this way and discovering that I can do it a different way. That is what led me on to using mixed media. Before we start, do me a favour and press that subscribe button over in the corner and give me a thumbs up and do the dingy bell thing. That's the housekeeping done. Let's see if we can make a fantastic picture with two medium that you shouldn't use together, ever. We're going to have a go at doing some mixed media, and I have here my dad's old chalk pastels that he bought in Paris about 60 years ago, which I love using, and you know, it's a bit of sort of nostalgic heritage for me. And I also have my Winsor & Newton watercolour palette, which I bought with the money I got from a prize that I won for a graphics competition I did when I was at university. So still got these as well. These are pretty old too, but I'm going to use them together, and I really like using pastels and watercolours together. The picture that we are going to use is this one. So I'm going to be using, I've got a little printout, which the colour isn't as good, but it just reminds me of what it looks like. And this is the Isle of Wight, where I live. It's the Needles and Freshwater Bay, or Alum Bay I think this is actually. These are called the Needles, these little sticky up bits of land right at the end that stick up into the water, and there's a lighthouse on the end. So I'm going to use that as my reference, and the first thing I'm going to do is just very roughly draw the outline. I'm going to leave some space for the sky, and this is the top of the headland, and this bit is all going to be grass, and then you have the sea, and then across the front there's some more headland over here which carries on going out, and then the needles are out here. Okay, so that gives me a rough idea as to where I'm going to put my colours. So I've got, in the chalk pastels, I've got four main colours. I've got a very pale, well actually it's not pale, it's vibrant green, that's for the foreground grass. This more sort of sagey green, that's for the headland up here, so I'm going to use that first of all. And I've got, it's on the side and it's quite flat. I'm just going to rub that over like that. And then with the green I'm going to use here over this bit of headland. And there should also be, oh, I've got some, I appear to have a spider's web trapped on my bit of paper. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to put some flowers on this as well afterwards with some more chalk pastel. Now, the sky and the sea. The sea in the picture, in the photograph I've got on screen, is very teal coloured. And you can see the waves coming in, so I'm going to go sideways like this because that's the direction that the waves are going in. And you really need to pay attention when you're doing something like landscape or sea. You need to pay attention to the direction that the energy is coming in. In this respect, the energy is of the sea. And then we've got a fairly light bit here where the horizon is, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of blue, darker blue up here. Right. Now the other thing that I haven't got any of is these very deep shadows that run down in striations down the side of the rock. So what I think I will do there is I'm going to choose a sort of purpley colour. Let's have this one. I'm going to take some of the paper off. I'm just going to try it first of all on my, yeah, that's fine. Just wanted to test the colour. Okay, so these come down at sort of odd angles to one another because of course this cliff isn't flat, it's very knobbly, and there are some areas that have got a lot of shadow and other areas that are not quite so in shadow, and then that's the shadow stops at the water's edge. And every couple of seconds I'm looking back at my reference picture to make sure I'm in the right place. In fact, I'm probably looking at my reference picture more than I'm looking at what my hand is producing on the paper that I'm drawing on. Okay, cool. Now for some fun. I'm going to use my big old favourite brush. It's a Proline by ProArt brush, sorry, and I think it is a 16, size 16, and I'm just going to wet that very thoroughly. I've got a big old vat of water that I'm using, and then I'm going to just dab a little bit of clean water into each of these paint pans just to soften the paint up a little bit so that when I come to use it I haven't got to scrabble around trying to make it wetter. Okay, I'm going to do the sky first, so I'm going to go where this blue is. I think that's probably a bit dark actually, so I'm going to go and rescue myself with a piece of tissue and just clean that pan out completely. And that's just now clean water, and I'm going to use a bit of that colour, see what that looks like. That's pretty good. Okay, using plenty of water now. Oops. Now there's a mistake. It's okay, I can live with mistakes, because you can just fill that in like this. So a lot of this colour that you're seeing is actually coming from the pastel rather than from the watercolour. The watercolour is like a bit of a carrier for this colour. So I don't want it to be completely covered like a blanket of blue. The whole idea about this is for it to be textured. So I want to see these white areas, and I want to see, I don't know if you can see just here, it's kind of splayed down a little bit. I like that. I'm going to add a bit more colour to that area just to see that blue transfer down a little bit. I like that. And over here there's too much water, so I'm just going to take up a little bit of that water so it doesn't kind of merge down any further. And then I'm going to go to do the sea next, I think. So I need some more green. I need a bit of green in that blue, because let's see what that looks like. I don't know what, I'm not quite sure what colour this is, because I always lose my bits of paper to tell me what colours are, but this is a bit gritty, this one. I'm not sure if this is going to work very well. I'm going to put a little bit more blue in. I'm going to use this blue. This is like a royal blue. Oh, yes, I like that. Lots of water, and remember the waves are coming in this way, so we're going to use the brush going up and down this way, and that's where it's hitting the edge of the cliffs over here. And we might afterwards put a little bit of white in to show that there's a bit of white horses, waves crashing against the side there. Okay, good. Now I want to try and get some colour into these cliffs over here, so I'm actually going to use some of this cerise colour, and then when it mixes with the purple that's already there, I think it will make quite an interesting colour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my brush quite far back, and because that way you're going to have lots of little movements that you're not necessarily in control of, and I'm just using the very tip of my brush, and then perhaps give it a little bit more in some places, just press a bit harder. I have actually left this to dry for a little bit so that the sea and the sky are a bit drier. And also there's a fly in here, so sorry if you hear lots of buzzing. Because I just didn't want the cliffs to run into the sea and the sky. Okay, just water now, and I'm just going to run across the top in some places and then down the bottom in others. And actually it's still a little bit damp in this area, and that's okay, I don't mind that. So it's running a little bit into the sea. But what we're going to do is we're going to show that there's some reflection in the sea in a minute anyway, so I'm not worried about that bit. I'm going to, now that I'm waiting for this section to dry, so I don't really want to touch that at the moment, I'm going to look at this headland over here. And I'm going to use a brighter green, so I'm going to clear out this little tray. Just get some water in there first. Oh my goodness me, that is very gritty. Let's not use that. Not really. I think I'm going to need to buy some new green, because all my greens are looking a bit weird. I mean, that's not my colour either. Okay, do you know what? We're going to have to go old school and use blue and yellow to make the right green. So I'm going to use my brightest yellow, which is this one, that's cadmium. Just put a little bit of that, and because I put water on it to start with, it's quite wet in the middle, so that's good. Clean my brush. I'm going to use this very bright blue. A little bit, see what that looks like. That's way too dark. Too blue. So I'm going to rinse my brush out. I'm going to go back in, make sure it's clean, and then I'm going to go back into the cadmium yellow, pick up some more of that, and see where we get to. That is getting better, but it's still too kind of murky, really. Okay, I'm going to use this blue instead. See if what that brings. Oh, that brings the tone up a little bit. That's good. Okay, let's use that. So that one is more of a sort of aquamarine blue rather than that one, which is like a royal blue. Probably should have stuck with that one, really. Okay, now let's see what happens when we add it to our green. I'm going to use it very sparingly because I like this green. In fact, most of this is actually water. I'm going to go back. I'm going to just pick up some of this aquamarine blue and just use that and see what happens. Yep. Okay, and I like that. It's going to move that colour around a little bit. So what you can do is actually plonk your colour onto the page and then move it around, rather than mixing all the colours up and then getting it onto the page once it's mixed. I'm going to use a bit more of my green over here, and it's on wet, so it's actually going to pick up a lot more of that pigment. You can't really do this same method with oil pastels because they don't move in the same way. Just to define the edge a little bit, just gonna, because where it's closer to you, you can see a bit more detail. So I'm going to use this pointed end now as if there's some grass. Coming over the edge of the cliff top there, being as this is the nearest edge. And then again, water, just move that around a little bit. It's really important that you don't do anything uniform, so it's not all the same, that your pressure, where you're moving your pigment around, it's all got to be, remember this is a whole texture. Okay, I'm going to leave that to dry for a few minutes. Okay, we are now going to do this top part of the headland here that's in the distance. So that is a darker green than the one in the front, in the foreground, and I'm going to use, for that, I'm going to use this green, which is kind of like an army green sort of colour. I'm just going to use it as it is, just mixed in a tiny bit with the darker green we used down the bottom. Pick up a bit of water because I want it really watery. And again, it needs texture to it, so you don't need to cover the whole paper. And I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that colour and just drop it on in dots. And that way then it spreads out as it touches the water. Okay. I'm just going to give it a little bit down as it goes down the cliff here. Just a little bit to show that there's a bit of grass over there. Now, I need to leave this to dry properly, which I'm going to leave it for probably about half an hour. So I'm going to go and make some lunch and then come back to it shortly. Okay, that's had a little while to dry now, and what we're going to do is add some details. So, first thing I'm going to do is, with my white, this is number 1 white chalk pastel, I'm just going to add some details for the sea. So, I don't know if this is, how well this is going to come across in the video, but I will take a photograph so you can see it at the very end. And I'm just kind of doing like little wiggly W's, and that just shows that there's some waves coming in. I'm pressing quite hard, and also before I put this chalk to the paper, I made sure that it was clean, because it's quite often you can pick up colour and then you're transferring it accidentally to your sea colour. Okay, now when I first started doing the pencil drawing, I was using a 4B, but now I'm going to use an 8B to do some of the details. I'm going to run it along, and again, this is going to be in some places strategically placed along here, not everywhere. So I'm just going to, in fact, I'm going to use my pencil almost sideways, just drag it along that top area, miss a little bit out and come back in again, and that way it gives you an idea of the edge of that cliff without it being like a straight line. And then down over here, follow that slightly green area. Then again, I'm going to do the same thing. Now my paper's buckled a bit, so it's a bit wibbly wobbly, but I'm going to do the same thing, but using a lighter touch along the top. And if you make some little wiggly bits, it makes it look like grass and the sort of lumpy bits that you'd find on the landscape. And then I'm going to come down to where the needles are, and for this I'm going to go back to my picture to get it slightly more accurate. And because it's difficult to see from this picture actually, but they do stick out, and then there's that little, this is the lighthouse. They do stick out into the sea with their like little islands of their own. And then some of these striations, again, I'm going to use my side on just to kind of darken it up a little bit. Just going down where the darker purple areas are, not everywhere, just in some places, and that shows that that's really dark there. Moving on to, I'm going to pick up some pink. Which pink shall we use? We're going to test them out on a bit of paper. No. That one's more like it. What's this one like? That's quite nice, I like that. And I've got a paler one. That's too pale. Okay, we're going to use this one, which is Rose. Number 31. Makes any difference to anybody? And I'm going to put a few little flowers just dotted around. They're just like little tiny blobs of, and kind of scattered around as well. You don't want them to be in a regular pattern because that's not very natural. And then I'm going to use a smaller brush. I'm going to use this brush, which has nothing on it whatsoever. Oh yes it does, it's a number 4 and it's quite pointed at the end. Wet, make sure it's really really wet, and then I'm just going to go over those little pink bits just to break up the chalkiness of the chalk pastel. So I'm going to swap my brushes because that one is misbehaving. Let's use, I'm going to use a really tiny one. This actually says it's a number 25, which doesn't really make much sense because usually the higher the number, the bigger they are. Which clearly doesn't make any sense here. And then I'm just letting the paper and the water and the pigment do their thing. You don't want too much of a blob of water because then it's going to start making the green behave in a different way as well. Just like that. There we go. Okay, that's enough. Now I might just actually I've got a white jelly roll pen here. This is the number 10, which I use more for when I'm doing bullet journaling and lettering. I'm just going to see what that looks like as waves as well. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's sitting on top of the paint, alright. But it's much, much finer than the chalk, so I'm not going to do a huge amount of that. The thing about the actually what I will do is I'll put a little bit on that down here on that end bit of rock. The thing about the Needles Lighthouse is it's stripy red, so I'm going to go and find a pen to make that red and then I'll be back in a mo. Okay, I found one. It's very fine tipped red, bright red pen, and I'm just going to add just a couple of bits of red to that pretty minimally. And then with my 8B pencil again, I'm going to fill in that top area just a little bit more. Okay, so we've got a little bit of purple here that I don't want. I'm going to see if we can just get rid of that a little bit. And the one thing that we haven't done yet, which is really, really important, is the reflections. So we've got quite a lot of white reflection and some of this purple. So I'm going to get my purple again. Oh, now I'm all confused. No, it was this one. It was this violet one. So I'm going to put a bit of reflection down here. Okay, and then some white. So again, go finding my white one. And you have to push quite hard over the areas where you've painted. I think it was this one. Yeah, it was. So I'm going to add a little bit more colour to this, but I think that'll be okay. Then, with my big brush again, just water. And lines like this, just to show those striations, but they're the reflections in the sea. It's a good word, isn't it? Striation. Plenty of water this time. Okay, and then clean brush. And then I'm just going to drag that again, because we've got the waves coming in this way. That energy of the waves shows which way it's going. And just with my 8B pencil again, I'm going to just go along the bottom of the cliffs, show where that cliff edge is. Not all the way along, just in strategic places. Okay, and that is how I would approach mixed media. Now, mixed media does cover a massive array of things. You could use mud and felt tip heads. That's still mixed media. It's just an overarching word and phrase for using a bunch of stuff together that you wouldn't normally see together. So this is what I would use, and well, I hope you give it a go and use whatever you've got knocking around. Now then, before you disappear off to make another cup of tea and eat some more biscuits, let me tell you about something that might be useful to you. During the lockdown period, if you have made some life-changing decisions, maybe if you've lost your job or if you've lost your way with your work, you may be looking for something else to do. If you want to find some fulfilling work, you might have decided to write stories. Good for you! It's a brilliantly creative way to spend your time, and if you are a very expressive person, you might find that this is the outlet that you have been craving. If you're in a position where you've written a story but you don't really know what to do next, I'll leave my course details in the box below. The preview is free. It covers topics such as how to make those key decisions about how you're going to publish this thing, and how you're going to make layouts and making a dummy book, and how you're going to get to grips with the tech. There are also lessons on how to draw basic themes like backgrounds, people, places and animals. Hopefully this video has given you some confidence to break a few rules and make some amazing art. Next week is the July plan with me, so get your bullet journal ready. I'm not quite sure what the theme is going to be yet, so if you've got an idea, drop me a comment below. Until then, I'm going to try and eat my own body weight in cake. I'll see you next time. Nanu nanu!